Hi, this is Amy from Good Food on Earth, and my guest today is Brittany. She is a mom in Ontario, and we've seen a lot of stuff happening right now with kids that is kind of going in a negative direction. Parents are looking for options, they're looking to connect and to network. So, this is going to be part of our Solutions podcast. And Brittany came up with an idea. So I wonder if Brittany, you could maybe introduce yourself a little bit. What made you decide to create Mamas Making Moves, and maybe tell us a little bit about, how that started and what the goals are.
Yeah, so my name's Brittany. I am located in Ontario in the Niagara region. And me and another mom actually met on a Zoom meet and we just started chatting. And we both had a lot of similarities. It seemed like such a synchronicity. She noticed like a couple of years ago that there was a lot of people that were isolating themselves and they were feeling lonely and connection just wasn't the same. She actually started writing a book about loneliness. And me too, like I started to notice a couple of years ago that connection just wasn't the same, mainly due to social media outlets. So after that, we started talking and we thought, you know what, let's make a mom group because there's obviously many people that are in agreement with us of what's going on and they need support and they need to connect. So we just randomly that day came up with the name Mama's Making Moves because our goal was to make moves and connect people. So yeah, so we just started it that day and we got quite a few people right away. And from there, we've made like little regional groups. So now we have, I think, 12, and then we have 13 with our main one, which is Ontario. Um, yeah, so basically in those groups, we're just trying to spread awareness of the harms that are happening in schools and also just giving parents alternatives for education. And really, it's just about the connection that people were lacking even before, like I said, COVID. So we really truly need to get back to authentic connection with each other. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So some of the groups, I guess, I wonder if you could share some examples of how parents might have benefited already. What are some of the things that they've been able to do?
Well, what mainly I've noticed and what people have told me is they've just connected. They've just connected with people in their communities that are like mine. They're feeling the same. They might have already taken their children out of school because of how their child's been treated, or they're just not in agreement with the measures
Yeah.
with children, and they're really thankful. And it seems like it was something so small, but it seems to be making such a difference for people, and that's truly what I've wanted for such a long time is just to bring back community because we're missing it and we so need it.
Mhm.
And I think that would be the number one thing is just just connecting, just talking. We need
Yeah.
it. So
Mhm.
kind of like a peer support type thing.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Yeah. I with the things that parents can do is that like, you know, play dates for kids or you mentioned some alternative education. Has there been a lot of interest in certain areas? Like maybe is it people asking, are you homeschooling? Do you want to like join a pod or things like that?
I haven't heard of anyone homeschooling together, but
Mhm.
I'm sure maybe some people are, but mostly it's just getting together for play dates and
Mhm.
just like, it's so hard because right now a lot of us have been separated from our friends and some of like our family,
Yeah.
having different opinions of what's going on, myself included. And it's been really hard. So I feel most people, it's just so far it's been like a friendship
Mhm. Yeah.
connection and their kids as well. Cause when they're not in school, they're not having the social piece.
Mhm.
So, and that I know a lot of children are struggling with the isolation and the measures and just not being able to be kids. Like
Mhm.
they're not being kids,
Yeah.
I can't imagine what it would be like for them
Mhm.
now.
Yeah.
especially the teens and the young adults, like going to college, like having your prom, having your grad, like none of that. It's virtual. Like that's not connection. That's not a grad. That's that's not going to college. It's not the experience.
Yeah.
We're missing the experience. So
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, there was a website you put me onto, called, Kids Voice Informed Choice, and I was looking at that website the other day, and I saw, um, some of the experiences that the young kids were having in the schools, and
Yeah.
I don't think some parents realize just how dire the situation is in a lot of
No,
places.
they don't.
I wonder if you want to talk a bit about that. Like, what have you noticed? What have you heard from parents, or from kids as well? Like, if you've heard any stories. Yeah.
Yeah, so well, actually, I guess I forgot to mention at the beginning, what really pushed me to do this was with my daughter's discrimination in her school with regards to her mask exemption. She was ostracized in her school. She was made to stand outside the classroom while all the other children were inside getting undressed from recess, and she had to wait there until they were all sitting in their desks, and then they were also told to stay away from her at recess. So, and then when I decided to bring her back 2 weeks later because she really wanted to go back, she was denied entry because I refused to follow those rules, but that don't, there's no evidence that they're safe and effective, but there certainly is evidence that they are not safe and effective.
Yeah.
So, and I've always told my daughter since the beginning is, what, you need to respect what other people believe and their distance,
Mhm.
and that's never changed. So it wasn't until the rules changed with our region that she decided to do that.
Mhm.
Or sorry, that they decided to do that. So
Mhm.
anyways, and I've heard, speaking out about that, I've heard that from other parents, similar things like kindergartens getting denied entry due to mask exemptions, or children even telling, like I heard last week, I'm just like shaking my head. This girl, I don't know how old she was, telling her teacher, I can't breathe in gym class, and her teacher saying, I know. Like, what? Like, it's just it's
And the
mind
you know the crazy thing is, I've looked at the Reopening Ontario Act, and then we have a similar,
boggling.
I looked recently at our Newfoundland mask special order because it's not a bylaw here. But what's interesting is they have this huge list of exemptions, right? And even in the Reopening Ontario Act, it says in there, for greater clarity, like, you cannot ask for proof of exemption as well. And we've got our Human Rights Commission here in Newfoundland that also made an official statement, although I'm sure most people haven't read it, that says, like, you have to take a person on good faith. You cannot demand proof. You cannot deny service. So, like, even to public places, you can't do that. And
Yeah,
it's crazy because the younger kids too are like, they're fully off the list. And then you
yeah,
have, like you're saying, all of the data. We've got all the data. We've done our
yeah,
due diligence, and I'm sure there's lots of other parents who have too. Like,
yeah,
anytime, there's lots of parents who are like, when the doctor recommends something, they don't just say yes. They want to say, hey, well, let me look into it
yeah,
because this is my kid, right? And then
yeah,
they're going to look at the evidence and say, well, maybe this isn't going to be best suited for my kid. There's a lot of strong evidence on this side that it's not going to be healthy for them physically or psychologically. And the risk for them that we've seen with related to COVID, all the numbers that are reported
yeah,
with kids, it's like it's less than negligible, right?
yeah.
It's incredible. But you mentioned something to me, which I find incredible with some Ontario schools, is a policy, right? This thing that they're
Yeah.
going. Yeah, you want to talk about that?
So yeah, so I haven't heard it in this board. And I believe, and I saw it on that site as well, I believe it's only TDSB,
Hmm.
which is the no mask, no voice. So now we're open, like they are openly saying we're silencing children. But others, I've heard it from pretty much all the school boards around here that are doing it, and they were doing it at my daughter's school. It's like they're not saying it, but the children at lunchtime are not allowed to talk.
Mm.
Like, I'm like, what? Like, it's just, they're already, spread, spread apart. Like, they already don't wear them, right? Like, it's just, yeah, this, that really, I think for even parents that maybe aren't fully understanding of what's really happening, that alone, they're going, okay, wait a minute.
Mhm.
That is really, really authoritarian. Like, that's way too much.
Yeah.
And I think some are now catching on, like, hey, what is going on? And
Mhm.
I do not feel comfortable with my child being silenced.
Mhm.
So um, yeah, it's just, it's getting bad out there, and it's not getting better that I can see. And I just think of now summer's coming.
Mhm.
A lot of schools, they're mandated masks for outside.
Yeah.
So I wonder, what's it going to take?
Mhm.
What's it going to take for a child to, have possibly die
Mm.
from that outside, for people to go, okay, maybe it's not a good idea.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and it's none of it is based in evidence. It's what I think people don't really understand is we're all a human experiment right now, and I'm not comfortable with myself being a human experiment, or my child. And I think parents really need to know that they have a right. That's your child, it's your property, and you absolutely do have a say of what your child does with their body.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I think if more parents said no, it would stop. Just like with us as adults, right? We all know that if we all said no to what's going on, then we would not be here. If we all took off the mask, there would be no pandemic.
Mhm. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
just gives the effect. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I know it's probably most of the people watching this are like fully on board, but there might be like people who are like, "What do you mean?" And all I can say at this point is the evidence is there. It's even on the government websites on Statistics Canada. You can get data, the numbers from them,
Mhm.
and you just have to look. So if you want to know, just take a look. But yeah, I want to ask you something as well because you have a young daughter and there's parents who are I I want to ask you how do you find it? Like how can you be an effective advocate for your daughter? Like what advice would you give to parents? Like, you know, you seem I my impression from you is that like it's natural for you to do that.
Well, I could
So
tell you a little bit of probably why it's more natural for me. But I mean, I come from a strong mother that was very much, if something wasn't right, like she stood up for herself, and same
mhm,
with us, like she would stand up for us. So I mean, I come from it, and it's a long line of women like that. But also, I was a single parent, and at one point I did have to fight for my daughter for what I knew was right. So, and I feel I've always kind of been like an advocate. I did go to school for social service worker
mhm,
program, so that also helped with that. But yeah, I think people just need to know that we know what's right and wrong, and and if we're going to be let them trample on us, or anybody, then we're also teaching our kid that it's okay to just listen and not stand up for what is right, right?
mhm,
And with what's happening now, I think it's really important that we teach our kids that, no, when you know something is wrong and it's harming people, and you need to say no.
mhm,
They need to know that boundary,
yeah,
and those are skills that they need to learn. And it really amazes me now too, with Black History Month that just happened, that, like, I mean, I can't say for sure, I don't talk to all kids, but I thought maybe I would hear about connections kids made
mhm,
to then and now, because there's a
right,
lot of things that happened then
yeah,
that are happening now,
yeah,
and even in other times in history, right?
yeah,
But yeah, I think our kids, and I really strongly feel that our kids' voices need to be heard.
mhm,
And that is something also that we want to do, is start a support group for teens, because it's
mhm,
so needed.
Yeah.
And I am considering doing it myself. Um,
Mhm.
maybe out of my home. I'm not sure exactly, but and yeah, I really really want to start hearing from children because I feel that they'll be listened to.
Yeah.
But I'm hearing from a lot of parents that because everything's online and all their friends are online, like,
Mhm.
they're not leaving their houses.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and teens even before this were pretty antisocial. Like,
Mhm.
it's only made it worse. I guess I wouldn't say it's antisocial, but not social in person. Like everything's online now.
Yeah.
Um, so, so yeah, I would really like to start hearing from teens how they're feeling and hearing their voices.
Mhm.
Um, we also want to start putting together a project that is with teens' voices.
Mhm.
And or young adults, or it can also be parents if there's a lot of children that don't want to talk about it, and some children, just like us adults, are exhausted and they don't want to
Yeah.
think about it, and they just want to they just want to go on their day. Understandable. um, so what we're looking for is just a video of their mouth and
Mhm.
just them saying how um, the measures have affected them.
Mhm.
So, or
Yeah.
what they've experienced, like if they've been discriminated at school or denied entry,
Mhm.
um, how the isolation has affected them. So, like that video you posted in one of your other podcasts, like that hit me hard.
Mhm.
And I had a full on breakdown that day. And I'm like, this can't go on anymore. Like, it
Mhm.
just can't, you
Yeah.
know? But it's how do we get people to be, and certainly young adults and teens, how do we encourage them to be vulnerable and stand in their
Mhm.
power? It's
Yeah.
very challenging.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think, even providing that space is the biggest first step because it's a
mhm,
message that's saying we want to hear your voice. Like
yeah,
we're not going to tell you what to do. We just want to hear
yeah,
your voice and we're giving you this non-judgmental space to just say how you're feeling. And I think that's a huge part that's missing right now is everybody's being told what to do. They're all being
mhm,
told, there's no space there. And we have, on top of that, this kind of fear that I think apart from um, the fear that like everybody is the worldwide, pandemic fear, but this fear of censorship, like
yeah,
this whole thing that's going on, this most people don't realize that subconsciously now they've embodied that fear. So they're monitoring what they say and they won't say certain things. And they're, afraid of being like cut off or ostracized or, you know, there's that immediate reaction of this like cancel culture is like, oh my God, I can't believe you said that. I can't be your friend anymore. Right. It's very harsh. Um, but yeah, that's a great initiative. How can people send you those videos for the kids with their mouth recording?
yeah. The email that I gave to you, that one's the one we're using. So yeah,
Mhm.
that would be great if people.
Okay. Yeah, I'll put that in the description,
Mhm,
so people can have a look at that. Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
And the groups, they're on Telegram?
Yeah, they're just on Telegram. We don't use any other social media.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if we will or not. I don't I don't think so, maybe, but at this point, yeah, it's just Telegram or
Mhm.
email.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the goal is to get people to meet up in person.
Mhm.
We want people to we need that again. So
Mhm. So you
yeah.
have 12 and we'll put the links for the telegrams also in the description and so
Mhm.
it's 12 regional and then one that's all of Ontario. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually one there was a lady from Mexico that randomly found our group. So I'm like, oh, Mikey one. And then I just put her on as the admin.
Mhm.
And I'm trying to think, oh, in Mexico, I think she said it's the children that are apparently the being said to be the spreaders. So
Mm.
that must be like horrendous there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, I think I don't know, I just think it's a shame and we're going to see the long-term effects of this for a while if we don't bring something to the table now to try to shift the direction. So with groups like yours, I think it's wonderful that parents, if you want to make a difference for your kids' lives, like immediately, there's options out there. And like Brittany and Steph created the Mamas Making Moves. There's, you know, people can start networking, and do look, because there have been people who asked me, they're like, I'm in this region and I know nobody. And like, I could tell you I'm in Newfoundland, and I could tell you that there are people all around you, you know, in different parts of Ontario. You just haven't found them yet. So you
Yeah.
don't have to feel
And
isolated.
yeah, and that's mostly what we don't want people to feel isolated. We want to give a safe platform for people to talk. And we can always, like what I said in our group was, if we don't have one for your region, we'll make it. It's really
Mhm.
easy, and yeah, we'll add one. So
Mhm. Yeah,
yeah,
and I think one of the cool things that I've been discovering with interviewing some alternative educators is there are going to be options. There are some already, but I think there's going to be more options for education for kids.
they're really popping off. Like
Yeah.
the pods, and since all this, like a lot of like businesses for sure forming, and even a lot of parents saying like, I'll teach my kids. Like, how
Hmm.
can I teach my kids, right? Homeschooling options, um, like Roots and Wings, they're doing, they want to do their micro school, they're doing the pods, they
Hmm.
want to do a homeschool package. Yeah, and there's been a lot of inquiry for that.
Hmm.
So, and I think that's, I do firmly believe that what is happening now is was meant to happen, because our systems do need to be rebuilt.
Yeah.
So they do need adjusted. It's time.
Hmm.
It's been time for a while, right? So
Yeah. 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 And I find it interesting too. Like you can have, when I've spoken to some of these holistic educators, the different approach to education with children versus,
yeah,
like, you know, what I remember in school. Like I had good teachers, but there was a system, right? And the system kind of said you have to meet these particular goals, and everybody has to do it in the same way, and you need to get
yeah,
these
right.
right answers to get the right grades. So yeah, I'm really excited about all these different options that'll be there for kids. Is I what have you seen?
Yeah, I think it's great. It's not a standard model at all, what the holistic schools are doing, and there's a couple of them in this area. Um, One, well, you mess or interviewed Stephanie, so
Mhm.
for that school. And yeah, no, it's not going to be like standard curriculum
Mhm.
where you're just very much sitting in a desk and doing your paperwork all day, or now like technology all day or a lot of the day. And it's going to be a lot of outdoors and exploring and learning about different things that they don't, you don't learn in school. And there's so much that's not taught in the typical education system that children need,
Yeah.
and that they're lacking.
Yeah.
So it's really great.
Yeah.
And I really do think a lot of things are going to be rebuilt and for the better,
Yeah. And
and for
there's
what we've
yeah.
always needed, you
Yes.
know?
Yeah. Yeah, and
So
there's one last thing I want to touch on too, which I you just kind of reminded me of with talking about like going outside. And um and I know, like, for your daughter too, it connected with me here. Kids and screen time. I mean, this looks like this is going to be the future if we don't change it. It's going to be like
yeah,
everybody's life on a screen. We're all just waking up, going onto the computer, staring
mhm,
at a screen all day long. Then when we
yeah,
take a break, we're staring at a screen. You know, like, but you can tell, I think, more with kids than with some adults, that that's not natural. So like
yeah,
one of the parents, one parent I was speaking to, um, her kid is doing online schooling, so he's
mhm,
home, but he's doing the official online schooling, and they want the kids on at 8:30 in the morning. Now, there's a bit of a difference between going to a school and
Yeah.
being there in person and starting your education then. But then when you're at home and that you have to turn on a screen, right, your mind it has to shift into a different mindset. So I wonder if what do you think about this whole screen thing and kids learning?
Um, get it all. It did not work for her. And I find some teachers are they're a little hard on them for them. You know what? They didn't ask for this.
Mhm.
This wasn't their choice. And for her age, like she's 7 years old. Like, I'm sorry. And another thing that's so important is you are not in a school environment.
Mhm.
How can we expect them to truly focus or be engaged? And certainly not at that age, right?
Yeah.
And then as they get older, they get more social. Like I know children in older grades they're kind of using it like their social time,
Mhm.
and because they're not getting out there to have social time, and they're also feeling super super isolated from it as well. And I just it's so unhealthy, I think, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I do see the effects. I do see the effects of my own child when she's had too much screen time. Like there is behavioral problems from
Yeah.
it, and it is an addiction. And I'll
Mhm.
be really honest, I hate the iPad. I hid it for so long,
Mhm.
and then my daughter found it. And I'm like, ugh. So I gave it to her, but now it's like crack. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
they're so addicted to it, and she is like terrible when I take her off it if she's had it
Mhm.
for too long. So, and that's a lot of kids I've seen before that have a really really hard time with it.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think that if we keep honestly allowing the system to work this way and to teach our children through computers, that a lot of teachers are going to lose their jobs.
Mhm.
And maybe as soon as next year, we're going to have AI teaching our children. And that
Mhm.
is not the way that I want my child to learn. And personally, I don't think that's really the way for any child to learn.
Mhm.
We're that's just to me turning our children also into you know robots.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's not healthy.
Mhm. Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff that's happening it reminds me of Black Mirror. Like I feel like
Isn't that
living
crazy?
living in the
Isn't
Black
it?
Mirror. I've seen
I
every
couldn't
episode,
and
and
I couldn't watch it. I saw
I
one.
know
I
so
said,
many people
you know,
say that. It's so good though. It's like I saw it 2 years ago and I was like, this is mind blowing
yeah.
because this can actually happen. And some people are like, what are you talking about? And I'm
Yes.
like, this could happen. And then there
Yeah.
was the one episode about the social credit system.
Mhm.
And that was already happening in China 2 years
Yes.
ago. Now they're
Yeah.
slowly trickling down this way.
Mhm.
Not slowly, I mean it's coming.
Mhm.
Um
Well, you want
so
to
yeah.
hear something funny? Was that okay? They've actually been doing it, but it's not overt. So they've actually already like, of course, they get all the data and stuff, but people won't recognize it. But say if you went to go get a loan and you
Mhm.
might have been denied, and there's no real good reason. Well,
Yeah.
that was the social credit thing at work, but now it's just going to be super overt and everybody's just going to know, because you'll have it on your smartphone, which is your monitoring device. And
So
it's yeah, yeah. So I looked at what, they gave the news stories when, CBC even did an investigation with the Uyghur population in China. And it's
Mhm.
like, oh, this is terrible what they're doing over here. And now we're implementing it all everywhere. It's,
Oh, exactly. Well, look at the vaccine passports that they want
mhm.
to bring in, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just, yeah. But I do have faith. I have faith in people and that, and a lot of people are starting to say, okay, like there's something seriously going on here. So
Mhm. Yeah.
I do believe the light will outshine the darkness.
Yeah. Well, we've got people like you and Steph who made these groups and started connecting people so that they realized they weren't alone. And what's really cool, I came across this information about how, if you have two people who are working separately, you get like it's like the equation of two plus or one plus one or yeah, one plus one equals two. If you got like, those two people, and then when they come together, it's their work is exponential. The result
Mhm.
from it. It's just the way that we happen to work. So when we come together, our effect is just exponential instead of when we're all working solitary and we don't connect. Um,
Right.
so so yeah, we have this amazing opportunity to
Yeah.
be the change, to
Yeah.
live the freedom that we want to see and see for our kids.
Yeah.
And people can contact you. They could I'll put the email and all the
Mhm.
Telegram links in the description. And we got to get, parents, there's options. Get together and get your kids playing. it's it's
Yeah.
uh it's important. Yeah.
Mhm. I do think a lot more people will start to take their kids out of the school
Mhm.
system. To be honest,
Yeah.
yeah. If it's if it doesn't change, so
Yeah. Well, it's not fun. I mean, it's like you're leaving your home, which is, a lot better, even though like some kids can't leave their homes because their parents are so terrified. Um, but
yeah,
it's a lot, then you're going from your home where at least you have your room and you have some comfortable things that like, are yours. And then you go into a sterile environment where everybody's like obsessed about like keeping your hands clean, wearing this on your face all the time, like nobody's talking, you have to ask for a drink of water, like all this stuff. It's
well,
just
yeah,
imagine being a kid again
no,
and
mhm.
having to being in such a tight controlled atmosphere. Mm,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's awful, and it's this is the thing with like the masking and everything that I don't think most people think about. It's like, oh, I don't think it's that bad, or oh, I hear a lot, oh, my kid doesn't mind. It's like it's not even that people, it is affecting them physically.
Hmm.
They might not think it's bothering them, but they're also not understanding that they're not processing your emotions or the
Hmm.
teacher's emotions or
Yeah.
Joe out in public. They're
Yeah.
not, because we're not seeing that. And even for me as an adult, that's scary. I can't tell what anyone's thinking, and I don't like that.
Hmm.
I want to be able to read people and see them.
Yeah.
Emotions are so important. Like we need emotion, and this is children can't read, and children already before this a lot were struggling with emotional dysregularities. So
Mhm.
I can't imagine what it would be like in a school to have that. And then there's also the not being able to effectively communicate because that, and then there's also the muffledness,
Mhm.
um and uh, what else, and then it's just like the mental piece to that too,
Mhm.
like all the anxiety with all the, like you said, all the sanitizing
Yeah.
and the masking and the 6 feet apart and the rules. Like it's just like it's so unnatural. It is abusive and it is unnecessary
Mhm.
because, like you said, there's so much data out there. It's right under people's noses,
Mhm.
and if they would just look, they would see that it's just there's no need for any of this, and our children are suffering because of it,
Yeah.
and it needs to stop. It
Yeah.
really needs to stop.
Yeah.
So
And I want to end with there was a mom who actually contacted me and said, I feel it's my duty as a mom to listen to my daughter who's like, 6 years old when she says she can't breathe. And I'm
yeah,
yes, 100%. I think, we should all like listen to the kids when they're telling us exactly what's happening to their bodies. And some kids can say it. And like you said, some kids can't. And the kid's voice informed choice. There was a really young kid who had a nosebleed and it soaked through his mask and he wore it all day long because, I don't know if he ever tried to take it off, but he came home with it. And,
yeah,
if kids are terrified, they're not going to say anything when they're hurting. And I don't think that's the environment we want our kids to grow up in, where they don't want to talk to us because they're afraid of, what we're going to say to them or what the repercussions will be. Yeah.
exactly. It's becoming way too authoritarian,
Mm,
and it's not healthy, and
mm,
it is scary. So
yeah.
yeah, absolutely, parents should listen to their children, and like, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine my if, like I said that story earlier, that, and just like you said, if my child said I can't breathe and the teacher said I know, and just I don't know how people are continuing
Mm,
to accept that, and like, ugh, like,
mhm,
I don't know. It's
yeah.
just
Well, they should join your groups. We need the parents to reach
yeah,
out and yeah, they should join Mamas Making Moves, especially
yeah,
if you're in Ontario. And if you're not, look at the groups and maybe take this idea and create something where you are locally.
yeah,
I know there's going to be information hubs created so that people can connect between provinces as well to share
yeah.
like resources, and you could
Mhm.
be that person in your province, and then you could connect up with Brittany and say, hey, we're over here in like, I don't know, in PEI or New Brunswick, and this is what we're doing. Do you have any like resources we might be able to tap into? And yeah,
Yeah,
so we can do that. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. I think that's a
Yeah.
good idea.
Mhm.
Because yeah, if we can spread out and get together, like spread our groups out and get together, that's what we want. We
Mhm.
want everyone to get on board and fight for our children
Mhm.
and help
Yeah.
each other out, connect again.
Yeah. You know what you remind me of? I just did a class with wild edibles and stuff, and we talked about how trees communicate. And
Yeah.
there's this wonderful scientist in Banff out National Park, and she
Mhm.
studies trees, and
Yeah.
she calls the nodes, which are the biggest where the biggest communication lines under the ground, at the mycelium
Yeah.
networks. She calls them the mother trees.
Mhm.
You know, so we're gonna have our own mother trees everywhere, and they're
Yeah,
gonna
for
connect
sure.
together.
Sounds
Yeah,
sounds good.
yeah,
That's what we want. Just want people to connect again and build a better world
yeah,
for our
yeah,
kids.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
We'll do it. We'll get there.
We will.
But thank you so much for coming on, Brittany, and thank
Thank
you
you.
for your work.
Yeah, no problem. Have a